Are there some people who may be more human who go along with the alien agenda?
Yes, of course, there are many factions within this, which is why we're seeing the world the way it is, because these 13 families, even though they have the same ultimate goal, do fight among themselves and do take sides against one another. And so we're seeing now a battle between the Windsors and the Rothschilds and the Romanovs for complete control of the planet.
Now, these 13 families, do they geographically spread all over the planet, or are they primarily in Europe? Where are they?
They're mostly based in Europe, but they have sectioned out the world under different control for different families. For example, the Windsors are in control of the British Isles and North America and Australia, whereas the Rothschilds controlled mainland Europe and Africa and parts of Asia.
If we grabbed one of them and gave them an X-ray, what would we see? Would they look human?
Well, on an X-ray, of course, if they're in a human form, they'd look human.
So everything changes.
Yes. The whole structure, the whole genetic polygraph.
Okay, almost like a werewolf.
Well, that's where it comes from. That's the type of genetics. When you have that type of genetics where it can override the other genetics, you can manifest other characteristics.
Simply amazing.
And, we see this sometimes in humans when we have people born with webbed hands or feet, or people born with a tail. We have these characteristics sometimes manifest in births in humanity, but they're called anomalies or throwbacks to ancient time. It's really a form of shape-shifting.
I do have someone sending me now, as we speak, a picture of the Queen Mum's coffin. So okay. I'm gonna take a look at it, and we'll see what it looks like. While we're doing this, and I'm taking a picture of this. All right, here it is. Well, okay, it does look long, I'll tell you. I mean, it looks about 3 feet longer than a normal coffin.
Yes.
Maybe she was wearing her. No, I guess not. That's on top. No, she wasn't wearing her queen's hat. Nothing like that. Strange. Okay, let's talk a little bit in the last few moments we have here about before the calls next hour, Stuart. Time travel. What's your take on time travel?
Yeah, as I mentioned very earlier, it is not as complicated as you would think. Every point in time and space has a unique frequency and vibration. There are no 2 points in time and space that are identical. So if you can map out and vibrate an object, person, or thing to a specific point in time and space, there will be an instant connection because it would have to match. And that's how time travel and interdimensional travel takes place. You simply vibrate the body or a vehicle to a distant location, and there's an instant connection.
And we don't need to do this with a machine, right?
Well, of course, at Montec it was technological. But in my work, I do teach a form of mental time travel where you can mentally and energetically tune into a specific time and place.
Give us some other realities on this planet, Stuart, that have fascinated you in your investigations.
Well, one of the things that I found most fascinating was the fact that there are infinite realities basically occupying the same physical location, but the calibration of the vibrations are different so that we don't perceive them. It's kind of like a radio. You can tune the dial just a little bit at a time and get a completely different station, yet it's coming from the same radio. And that's what reality is like. If you can tune into a different frequency, you can see an entirely different vibration. So that there are realities where Earth is very different. There are realities where the reptilians never got here. There are realities where the Atlantean civilization stayed intact. There are realities where the Nazis won the war and took over the world. Every possibility exists. So whatever you can possibly think of or conceive of exists somewhere in creation.
You know what fascinates me about everything you've said tonight, Stuart, was the fact that the people may have construed the reptilians who went underground as being devils and hell in that entire episode. I mean, I find that to be absolutely fantastic and fascinating.
Well, everyone finds different aspects of this information for whatever reason that individual likes. But, for me, what I'd like to get across is that despite all of this, there's still hope. And that is, if we regain control of our own minds individually, then the control system would disappear.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think people need to realize that it's not hopeless. It's not a one-way street. We can reverse this if we take control of ourselves.
But we have to do it in mass. We can't do it in small numbers, can we?
That's true, but we need to start individually. And that's why I do the work that I do with the language of hyperspace and opening DNA and visualizations so that we can reintegrate the mind and then recreate our reality.
You and Richard Hoagland need to get together when you talk about hyperspace.
Well, we should all get together and change the way things are.
Now tell me, what do you talk about at some of these conferences you go to?
Well, I like to start out with what I call language of hyperspace, which is color, tone, and archetype, which I describe as the language of God-mind. All thought, if you could see the energy of thought, would have a color, a symbol, and a vibration or tone to it. If you learn how to connect them and like a sentence, if you will, you can create whatever it is that you want in physical reality. And I teach how to open DNA. I use color therapy. And in fact, for your listeners, on my website, I have a free ebook that they can download on color therapy. This is particularly the color brown that they can use and try for themselves. The mind really is everything. The brain is simply a tool that the mind uses, and we only use 10% or less of our brain capacity. So if we start to open a fraction of that other 90%, you can just imagine the abilities and functions that we could do. And we can change everything on this planet. And
will you take emails through your website?
Oh, yes, I get hundreds of emails per day. And, of course, my website is expansions.com. And those of you who go on there, you'll see my phone number, my fax, and you can even, there's Q&A. I answer all questions. I have daily news that I post. It's very comprehensive.
Okay, well, I got to tell you, Stuart, keep up the good work. Let's take phone calls next hour with people of everything you've investigated, the Montauk Project, the Reptilian Agenda, the mind control. Is there one facet there that just fascinates you more than the next?
Well, what I have been doing a lot of in the last few years is deprogramming work, which is to undo the mind control that the government has imposed on people. And I work with people all over the world to help them deprogram from this pervasive system. And I find that is the most important work to do right now.
Well, that is fascinating. Now, you can email me, George, at coasttocoastam.com. I'm getting lots of fast blasts about Stuart and some of the things that he is talking about tonight. So we'll do this, too. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll give you the opportunity to check in with us next as well. I'm George Norrie. We'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Stuart Swerdlow is our guest, and your phone calls as well. Is everybody under this mind control attack, Stuart? Are we all the potential targets?
At this point, 100% of the Earth is targeted, and everyone has some form of mind control within their brains. But there's about 5% of the population that has specific programming, which means they have very deep functions. And we see this sometimes in people who are shooters, vigilante programming, stalkers. There's many, many different types of programs out there.
Some could be pure evil, though, Stuart. Some of these people could be committing these crimes of horror on their own, don't you think?
Well, that is also true. But if you notice, in this last 50 years, there's been a very high percentage of these kinds of crimes out there, especially ritualistic murders, serial killers, and this is a side effect or actually a direct cause by the mind control and programming.